Hey everybody, it's 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock is with me, Father Warner. We are in Tuesday of the third week of Lent, and our text today, taken from the first reading, is Daniel chapter 3 verse 25 and verses 34 to 43. But I've also done previously a teaching on Matthew chapter 18 verse 21 to 35, which is the gospel of today, and which you'll find the link in the description box. So if you're looking at the YouTube video just below that, just click on it and you'll get what is called the description box, and you get various other links, and you just have to click on the links to take you to the next teaching, that is the gospel of today. But I'd like to focus on the prophet Daniel, and I've entitled today's teaching, Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us. That's a line itself taken from the prayer of Azariah. Now, most of us are familiar with the biblical narrative of Daniel in the lion's cage. Perhaps few are aware that Daniel was not the only young man to be taken into the Babylonian captivity. You know, the first reading of today highlights the lesser known three young men, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. These were their Babylonian names, which was changed by the palace master, and we know this when we read Daniel chapter 1 verse 7. By chapter 3, the young men and Daniel had found favor with Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And while Daniel is retained as the king's advisor in his court, the three young men, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, were appointed administrators over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Now, what one needs to know at this point of time is that while this book, the book of Daniel, appears to have been written in the 6th century BC during the time of the Babylonian captivity, in reality it was not written in the 6th century BC, it was written closer to the birth of Jesus in the 2nd century BC. So not written in the 6th century, but written in the 2nd century before Christ, during what was called the Maccabean revolt against the Greek king Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Now, King Antiochus IV Epiphanes, Epiphanes means manifestation, so he already believed that he was a manifestation of God, he was God. So King Antiochus had decreed, and you can read this in the book of Maccabees, he had decreed that the Jewish people should worship the Greek gods by offering them incense, and he also demanded that they eat pork, which was forbidden by the Jewish dietary laws. Now, many of the Jews at this point of time had succumbed to Antiochus's decree, but a few chose to die than deny their faith. I like that line, die rather than deny. So they held on to their faith. Now, the book of Daniel was written to give hope and encouragement, therefore, to these Jews of the 2nd century who clung on to their faith rather than apostatized. Now, by highlighting the examples of faith, such as those of these young men from another bygone era of the 6th century, young men who were faced with a similar situation in the 2nd century and who did not succumb, the hope of the author of the book of Daniel was to revive, therefore, that great zeal, that great fidelity for God in the midst of this 2nd century BC persecution under King Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Now, the narrative of today tells us that King Nebuchadnezzar wanted the three young men of Jewish descent, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, of course their names were changed, he wanted them, we are told in today's narrative, the king Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to worship a statue of gold that he had set up on the plains of Dura in Babylon, but historians, archaeologists really can't find this place, Dura, today. But we'll read about it in Daniel chapter 3 verse 1. Now, these three devout Jewish men, who by now we know held great importance in Babylon, chose rather to die than betray their faith. That is apostasy. When you say apostasy is when you give up your faith. Yeah, very often in the face of persecution, you give up your faith you condemn your beliefs, you give it up, you renounce your beliefs. That's apostasy, and it's dangerous. Yeah, a lot of people, the martyrs, have chosen to die rather than give up their faith. Maybe on some other day I also want to talk about blasphemy, which a lot of young people today are involved in, and I've seen this for myself. Yeah, we've got to be careful of these sins that we commit. So we are told that these young men, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, refuse to worship the statue of gold, and King Nebuchadnezzar is extremely angry. So enraged is Nebuchadnezzar that he orders a furnace to be heated 7 times more than was customary for such an execution. Now, the text of today is really a prayer of one of the 3 young men, Azariah. That was his original Jewish name. His name was changed to Abednego. So it's really, the text of today is a prayer of Azariah, or Azariah as some say, who was standing bound with his companions in the fire. And what were they doing? Singing hymns of praise, praise of God, blessing God's holy name. The text of today is part of that long and very moving prayer of testimony. It's a prayer of supplication, a prayer of trust. It's a prayer of praise. It's also a prayer of petition. The 3 young men, we know at the end of this narrative, emerge unscathed, and King Nebuchadnezzar then confesses to the power of their God Yahweh. King Nebuchadnezzar is amazed by God, not merely by the faith of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. He's amazed by God. The latter 3, that is to say Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, are promoted, but they are not deified. Looking into the fire, Nebuchadnezzar really was undone. He had sought total control. He unleashed all his destructive powers, but at that very point, he lost control. In addition, we know from the narrative that the officials who gathered before the king's statue now gather also to observe the failure of the king's fire. Why? Because God succeeds. Nebuchadnezzar fails. And I think herein lies our Lenten message for today. Thank you for joining me. Trust in God through your difficulties, through your challenges, through the many pains that we go through. And I ask you very sincerely, it's easy very often to deny our faith, especially in the times that we are living in. Quite recently, I must verify this because I like to verify, but someone sent me a video of, I think it was the swearing in of the Chief Minister of Nagaland, if I'm not mistaken, and present also was the Prime Minister, the Home Minister and several other dignitaries. And a beautiful prayer was said by the Baptist pastor. I have a little doubt, and that's why I said I need to go and verify it, because it seemed like a cut and paste job, but I'm going to go back and verify. But if that is true, I think that's a great witness, that we bear witness to our faith, sometimes even to people who do not accept us for our beliefs, and may even thwart the life of the church. But remember that the church has always grown in times of persecution, and there is a role for the persecuted church in each generation. We shouldn't always think that it's going to be smooth sailing for the church. What helps us overcome these challenges is the tremendous power of prayer. So God bless you. Thank you, all of you, for joining me each day. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and to all of you who have in this Lenten season given of your charity to our home in Goa, in Nouwen, to the Love Joy Hope Foundation, which is run by Lenny and Nadia Suarez. You have my deepest gratitude. God bless you.